This scale represents the internal logic of Rodion Raskolnikov. To him, a human life isn't an absolute value, it's a variable. He weighs the life of a single, worthless pawnbroker against the potential of a genius who could change the world. In his mind, the math is simple. The blood on his hands is a small price to pay for the greater good. He carries out the murder with the same cold precision as a math problem. No witnesses remain, no murder weapon is found, and he leaves no physical trace behind. By all practical measures, the crime is a success. This creates a vacuum for the authorities. In the 19th century, police work relied on rigid routines, searching for broken locks, tracking stolen items, and verifying alibis. When a killer removes every physical trace, these standard methods have no data points to process. Raskolnikov has designed a crime that traditional justice cannot touch. He understands that if the system is built strictly on tangible evidence, a suspect who leaves none is effectively invisible. But the investigation in St. Petersburg soon falls to Detective Porfiry Petrovich. Porfiry is less interested in the alleyways of the city than he is in the architecture of the human mind. He largely ignores the physical crime scene. Porfiry understands that while the floorboards have been cleaned, the evidence still exists in the only place Raskolnikov couldn't scrub, his own head. But you cannot simply demand a confession from a genius who knows the police files are empty. To catch a man like this, Porfiry has to stop looking for clues and start looking for the friction within Raskolnikov's own logic. When Raskolnikov first meets him, he doesn't find a stern investigator. He finds a man who seems to be a rambling buffoon. Porfiry babbles about his weight, his sedentary life, and offers self-deprecating apologies for his own messiness. This creates a jarring sense of cognitive dissonance. Raskolnikov arrived prepared for a high-stakes legal battle, but he's facing a man who won't stay on topic. The rigid, calculated script Raskolnikov prepared for his defense is suddenly irrelevant. This triggers a cycle of internal chaos. Raskolnikov oscillates between feeling intellectually superior to this fool and being paralyzed by the suspicion that Porfiry is performing, that the bumbling is a screen for something else. Just as Raskolnikov settles in his sense of superiority, Porfiry pivots. He mentions an article the student published months ago, shifting the focus to his innermost beliefs. This diagram illustrates the core of that article, titled On Crime. Raskolnikov sorts humanity into two columns, a massive base of ordinary people who must follow the law, and a few extraordinary visionaries who have the right to step over it. Porfiry uses Raskolnikov's own framework to corner him. He asks if an extraordinary man, if he truly possessed a conscience, would be able to live with himself after shedding blood. He's asking Raskolnikov to defend not his alibi, but his soul. While Raskolnikov's math might be perfect on paper, it ignores the reality of the man holding the pen. A theory cannot protect a human being from the internal consequences of their own actions. This leads to the most unnerving phase of the interrogation. Porfiry makes it clear he knows who committed the crime, yet he makes no move to make an arrest. He explicitly tells Raskolnikov that he is free to leave. He refuses to put him in a cell, effectively leaving the door wide open. Porfiry describes this as a moth circling a candle flame. He believes that if he gives the suspect total freedom, the man will inevitably keep circling the truth, drawn closer and closer to his own destruction by the heat of his own anxiety. By denying Raskolnikov a concrete prison, Porfiry leaves him trapped in a cage of his own making. Without iron bars to focus his anger on, Raskolnikov is forced to look at himself. The lack of an immediate threat only increases the paranoia. He weaves a web of his own anxiety, unable to flee because he cannot escape the investigator living inside his own head. Porfiry has realized that handcuffs would actually be a relief. They provide a reality Raskolnikov can fight. Without them, the detective simply lets human nature perform the interrogation. The mind games eventually stop in the silence of Raskolnikov's room. The bumbling facade is gone. Porfiry delivers his verdict directly. He isn't shouting or threatening, he's diagnosing. He tells Raskolnikov that he is the killer, not as a legal clerk, but as a man who sees someone suffering. He views Raskolnikov as a man suffocating under the weight of his own calculated ideas. He tells him that the only way forward is to stop hiding, to embrace the fresh air of suffering as the only path back to being human. This entire narrative was constructed by Fyodor Dostoevsky, a writer who understood that the mind's ability to justify a crime is no match for the heart's inability to survive it. Raskolnikov began this story believing he could outcalculate the universe. He ends it realizing that even a genius is subject to the internal friction of his own conscience. In the end, Porfiry doesn't need to build a case with physical evidence. He knows that a man who has violated his own nature will eventually be driven to deliver his own verdict.